Mr. Chairperson of the Forum, Mr. President, distinguished panelists and distinguished participants, really pleased to be here at this forum. And I welcome very much the focus on solutions to tackle the climate emergency, because we know that human rights, democracy, rule of law are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. They are the foundations for effective and sustainable climate action, but they are under threat nationally and internationally, and we see this almost every day. Around the world, civil liberties and political rights have declined for 19 years straight, according to Freedom House. Our own work shows that there are restrictions on civic and political space and on press freedom across all regions. According to data gathered by my office, 193 environmental and indigenous human rights defenders were killed or disappeared in 2024. While demagogues thrive on the extremes, communities are polarized. Climate denial, challenges to science and disinformation continue to spread, amplified on purely regulated social media platforms and fueled by some political and corporate leaders. Some countries are cutting funding for climate and environmental action as their priorities shift and as they are withdrawing from key international agreements, not just key international agreements. Meanwhile, the planet continues to heat up. 2024 was the warmest year on record, exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels for the first time. Each year we consume some 1.7 times more resources than our planet can regenerate. Almost half of humanity lives in climate hotspots where people are 15 times more likely to die of climate-related causes. According to Oxfam, the world's richest 1% are responsible for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66%. And escalating conflicts are devastating our environment. We hardly talk about that. And we know that scientists are warning that they can remake our ecosystems entirely. This is often a forgotten result of wars. Across the world, even countries with established institutions are struggling to act with the speed, fairness, and inclusion this moment demands. And trust is eroding as a result. The climate emergency is a wake-up call for more participatory and effective governance that is based on human rights. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has found that rights-based approaches to climate action lead to better and more sustainable outcomes. Ensuring that climate solutions embrace human rights can guide us to a more sustainable future. And I see 3 areas of actions to get us there. First, we need an open civic space, a basic tenet of democracy. It allows communities, especially those most affected by climate change, notably women, to voice their concerns and share their solutions. Involving indigenous peoples in discussions on climate policy is crucial. Their knowledge and approaches hold important lessons for all of us. For example, traditional indigenous practices, including the communal management of forests and fisheries, can mitigate the impact of climate change. And I had a chance to listen to indigenous peoples whenever I went to country visits, precisely to benefit from that collective wisdom. A free and public square enables scientists to safely gather and share evidence for decision-making. It means information is made accessible to people so they can understand the causes and effects of climate change and can make informed choices, whether at the ballot box or in their daily lives. It allows environmental human rights defenders, journalists, and others to shed light on abuses, to tell stories of progress, and hold corporate and political leaders to account. Open dialogue also fosters creativity. Today, The capacity for innovation is at an all-time high, and the transition away from fossil fuel dependency is a laboratory for new ideas which are desperately needed. Democracy is broader than the singular electoral moment. It stands or falls with the people's right to participate meaningfully in the conduct of public affairs. When people are empowered to participate, it builds trust in institutions and helps deliver decisions that work better for everyone. We are seeing some evidence of a link between the number of environmental groups and lower carbon dioxide emissions in places where governments respect civil liberties and are responsive to external influence. I would also like to highlight that there is an urgent need to address the impacts of lobbying and the potential for corporate capture. I hope that this forum will explore these issues further. Second, we need budgets that are anchored in human rights, which can unlock climate action. As you know, we have been advocating for a human rights economy where all policies, from taxation to climate action, keep a clear focus on advancing human rights and protecting the planet. For example, in a human rights economy, states would equitably phase out fossil fuel subsidies. They would instead invest in renewable energy sources, sustainable food systems, and social safety nets to help people adapt and adjust. Investors and businesses would disclose and divest from sectors that are doing irreparable harm to our climate and our environment, including fossil fuels. And third, we need a concerted push at global level for effective climate action and justice based on human rights embedded in rule of law systems at both national and international levels. There have been important developments. For example, the International Court of Justice issued, as you I'm sure have followed, a landmark opinion earlier this year that found that states' human rights obligations apply and are actionable in the context of climate change. Today, 164 countries recognize the right to a healthy environment. The Paris Agreement has certainly driven progress. However, implementation is hampered by an inadequate monitoring framework, purely voluntary commitments, opaque negotiations, and at times limited participation of women, indigenous peoples, youth, and civil society. Human rights principles can also inform climate justice efforts, for example, on righting past wrongs, truth-telling about the harm that has been done, healing, and reconciliation. Distinguished participants, effective climate action goes hand in hand with the full enjoyment of human rights. And to meet the urgency of the moment, we need fact-based governance focused on solutions, not distractions. We need to uphold the principles of participation, transparency, and accountability to drive progress on climate action and justice. We need governance that looks beyond short-term electoral cycles and power grabs and commits to change that is for the benefit of people, planet, and generations to come. Thank you very much.